Hey, Crystal.
Hey, 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 let me turn this music off. All right, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday, Kojo. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm alive and I'm well. Thank you. I'm
I
alive and I'm doing well. How you doing?
I am good. I have been traveling all over I've been between LA and Atlanta. I'm still a little jet lagged, but I am here.
Thanks.
I am here.
Where? Take it easy today. Take it easy today. We
Yeah,
got you.
we're gonna take it easy. It's gonna be a good conversation. Yeah, it's gonna be a good conversation. But before we get into put a ring on it, I want to do a quick recap on
Mm,
Ready to Love because we usually would recap Ready to Love, but we haven't done that this season. And so I just want to ask you, as we're going into, we just saw Sue Ann left, and then Blake eliminated himself. Um, so at this point, and then we just saw Lyndon leave on Friday. So
yeah.
I just want to ask you, like, what are your predictions for the couples that are remaining? I don't even really. I'm assuming it's Mark Anthony and Mercedes, um, Cynthia and Andre, or Anthony, um, Morgan and Tony, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and also uh, what is her? Oh my gosh, Jeffrey and I'm assuming,
Andre
yeah, Andre, or
or Mark Anthony.
yeah.
Yeah.
So where are you at? What are you thinking this season?
I mean, first of all, it's been a good season. I think there's been some interesting things happening. I think we've seen, a great shift. I hope there's been a great shift. And let me personally say, I think there was a villain at the beginning of the season that isn't a villain at the end, which is Blake, was seen as the villain.
Yeah,
And I don't see him as the villain now. And to be honest, I didn't really see him as a villain at the very beginning, but I think his positional change has been interesting.
yeah,
And obviously seeing Morgan and Jeffrey kind of go through the process and actually become the villains, almost in a sense, has been quite an interesting turnaround as well for this season. So that's been quite interesting. I think the actual couples themselves, I don't know. I feel like every year the couples are getting less and less authentic. But then again, I say that the history we've only had one or two couples. So
right.
has much changed? No.
No,
We're getting the same thing as before. So I probably shouldn't even be saying that, the history of things, because we've rarely had couples make it out of this show. When they do,
right.
it's a rare thing and it's a beautiful thing. So, but yeah, this season's been quite an interesting one. And I think coming towards the end of it, it's gonna be. I have a feeling there's gonna be one or two sparks at this reunion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How about yourself?
I I agree. I think it's interesting, the situation that Blake was put in. What I also think is interesting is Tony, and the fact that Tony, the interaction between Tony and Lyndon, making that comment about, well, if Marcia was here, you could have Morgan, like, the men basically like playing games. That was very childish, but I also think it was very telling, and I don't feel like enough, you know attention was brought to the fact that they really just, are playing, and
Mm,
that was a disrespectful comment. And then the fact that Lyndon used it as a card, um to basically get himself, to make Tony look bad and to put himself in a better place. It literally, she was just like, collateral damage. Morgan's feelings were kind of collateral damage. And I'm not saying I necessarily feel Morgan has some stuff going on as well, but the way that Lyndon and Tony were talking and then kind of used it to get back at each other and kind of have this, machismo contest was really immature and kind of disgusting to me. And I feel like it just kind of got blown off. Like, yes, I understand that Tony said that, but the fact that Lyndon used that at that time to put out there and embarrass Morgan was kind of, that kind of told me a little bit about his character as well. It was just like, why would you do that to her in public? Why wouldn't you pull her to the side? But he was basically just trying to, win, and, by any means necessary. So I thought that was interesting, and the fact that nobody else really had a problem with it.
I mean, I called it out. I've done several videos, and people have told me that it might be wrong, but I think the audience kind of sees what I'm seeing. But I said that there's a problem here in Lyndon doing what he did.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't about Morgan. It wasn't about saving Morgan. It's never been about Morgan. It won't be about Morgan. It's always going to be about fighting Tony.
Yeah.
Lyndon has had his eyes set on beating Tony
Yep.
since the very beginning. You
Yep.
know what I mean? So, for me, even the kiss situation at the end,
Yeah.
him mentioning at the end, oh, but you know what? I know that, Tony's going to be annoyed. Why are we
Yeah.
doing it then? If you
Yeah.
genuinely care about her, stay away from her then.
Right.
If you think that Tony is a worse candidate than her, you surely can't be thinking you're a better candidate when you know she's a red flag the size of a football field. So I personally can't endorse Lyndon's behavior. It is more passive than Tony's, and so it may look like he's a better candidate. He's not. He's also in the same boat. All three of them, I call them the triangulation of toxicity, because all three of them were toxic in their own way. You know what I mean? Lyndon might think he's better, but he's not. He's in the same boat because the things he's willing to do just to win.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I agree. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that because this is it's the own family, and we had been doing Ready to Love recaps, but we got a good season with Put a Ring on It. Thank you guys for joining. Please make sure that you're sharing this broadcast and make sure that you like the whoever's live you're watching. Make sure that you like it, so that people see that this is a great discussion and they'll be able to share it as well. So we're on episode 2. Episode 2, Put a Ring on It. First thing I gotta say is I really, really am liking Stacii Jae. I think that Stacii has a different approach. Is 100% different than Dr. Nicole, but I think that for this show and the fact that we're doing it in a way that you're using dates to prove the strength of a relationship. And I feel like, sometimes you just need somebody to get right to it. I like Dr. Nicole, but I really love what Stacey's doing. I think it's just giving us a breath of fresh air, and it's a total different approach. So I got to say that I like her being a part of the show. And just so far from what I've seen in the first 2 episodes, really, really, really just holding people's feet to the fire. We started this episode with Stacii holding Dunbar accountable for the fact that he was disrespectful on the date with Chance, that when she went on the date with, I think it was, what was his name, Philip, or
that was the first episode. Yeah, so she Chance on a date with Philip. Yep.
Yeah. So I love the fact that when they came back into the group, Stacii was very honest about the fact that that's not how you respect. That's not how kings treat other men, being disrespectful, being trying to sun him. What was interesting, and I know we touched on this a little bit last week, is that Chance immediately stepped up to his defense, right? And she's like, I don't see anything wrong with that behavior. And then, of course, we'll see later on in this episode, her behavior, mirrors his, in my opinion. I feel like they're like the same. They're two sides of the same card.
Same, yeah.
So that was interesting. What did you think of? What was your perspective on that? First, Stacii confronting them, and then, of course, Chance is kind of being the same way, with not quite as bad, but asking, do you need me to go on a date, and doing a little. She was just doing the most when Christal came to take Dunbar out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, look, I think these two as a couple are quite interesting in their dynamics. Now, we saw Dunbar, kind of give us a lot of energy on his date when it came. Sorry, on his. He gave a lot of energy when Chance was going on her date,
right.
And then obviously the reverse happened with her. She gave a little bit, not too much.
Right.
I think what was really powerful about their particular dynamic, and what we saw in this particular episode as well with Dunbar and Chance, is that I do believe that they're two people of the same coin. They're different sides, but they're the same. They're the same coin. And I say that because she gave the same reaction he did, a little bit less, but the same reaction. And then also as well, I think when we realize also that Dunbar also went on that date with the young lady as well. If you heard him before he went, there's something that I really do appreciate. He said, "Listen, I'm going on these dates to make me better for Chance. I'm not going on these dates to find a new girl." You understand?
Right.
So his focus is solely about improving himself for the woman he's with. Now, in my head, I asked, is that a bad thing or is that a good thing? I mean, I saw it more of a good thing, but I said, I remember past seasons we've had where, you know, they've spoken about it like, hey, opening yourself up to the process to actually date so that you can actually gain some insight to it. But I did love the fact that he was good on his date to improve himself for Chance.
Yeah.
I think it also made me see something too about their dynamic. Dunbar is not in control.
No.
I don't see Dunbar as control person.
No.
So as much as I thought, you know, in the beginning we looked at him like, oh my God. But when I saw it, I said, no. It looks like it could be the other way around. That Chance has far more power in this relationship than he does, you know?
Yeah. No, we're gonna pull up a clip from Friday's episode in just a minute that I think definitely confirms what you just said. But I want to ask you this. So there's right before he gets ready to go on a date, he does say that he's doing that, but he also prays again, which of course, you know, when you listen to it, it's like, oh, well, that is a great thing. You know, he's praying, he's taking it seriously. He also, you know, made a big deal about the fact that Christal was dressed very appropriately. She was covered up, but it's almost like I consider myself a Christian. I love a man that, you know, has a spiritual side, but a lot of times people lean into that when they are not in control. Right. And so for me, with him, you know, saying, I'm just like, he seems like he's really not. And I want to make sure that everybody understands. I'm not saying that praying is a negative thing, because I appreciate that. But what I'm saying is, I'm sensing just from his actions, him doing that when Chance went on her date, him doing that for the camera for himself, but he almost seemed like he had to steady himself, right? And then, you know, talking about the girl being super clothed and the fact that she looked very appropriate. To me, it's almost like methinks thou dost protest too much. Like, if a man is in control of himself, I don't think that he's not tempted by things that he doesn't want. So I just feel like he's doing a lot to prove things. Dunbar seems like he's someone that's trying to prove. And whenever someone's trying to prove a lot, there's usually some really huge inconsistencies that they're dealing with, that they're struggling with, right? It's almost like the loudest person in the room is never the smartest person in the room, because they're trying to convince you so hard. They're really trying to convince themselves. So I feel like we saw, you know, the first episode, we were like, oh, you know, Dunbar seems very charismatic. He's very talkative. He likes to crack jokes. He wants the attention on him. And then now we're seeing just a little bit. Stacii didn't even prick. She just literally sat him down for the first session with the two of them together. And that exterior, that bravado started to crumble. So I think that it's just proof that, like you said, he's really not as in control as he tried to present initially. I'm going to go ahead and play this first clip just because it's kind of, it speaks to what we're talking about right now.
I don't know how to handle a strong, independent woman. When I asked to help, she says, I got it. I know I have a lot to offer. And so when I'm feeling like I'm not respected or my judgment is not needed, it makes me feel very, very vulnerable.
So, Kojo, it was a few things he said in there. That was interesting. He said when he doesn't feel needed, he doesn't feel respected. And I just want to ask you, as a man, is there a correlation between needed and respected? That was interesting.
I mean, I would say the truth, there absolutely is. Because it's a case of, and I think, and it's quite interesting, this thing, because I think when we were talking about it the other day, I was wondering what Dr. Stacey was kind of missing about what he was saying, because he said it again to them. But let me focus on this part as you were describing. You know, for us as men, being needed is synonymous with our respect, in the sense of when you ask us for something, right? So it's not every single thing, it's the consideration that becomes respectful, you know? So it's, it's not necessarily that we're saying that we need to have a final say on what you're doing or what is being done, but rather a consideration. And going on what he was saying later on, let's say, for instance, you go to buy a car. You could probably buy the car by yourself and not need me, right? But it's a consideration, babe. I'm thinking about buying this car. What do you think? It's the consideration. It's the bringing. And that is what shows us that there's a healthy respect for us and a healthy respect for our opinion. And the opinion does not mean that it has to be the final say in certain things. No, it just means that it's considered. So when he's saying that Chance is, one, independent, Chance is, two, saying, let's say, choosing to do things independent of him, it makes him feel disrespected, because, like, if you really respected me, you'd probably ask my opinion on some of these things. That's how he's reading it, in a sense. So yeah, for us as men, just asking us, our opinion is such a big thing. It shows that, we're needed, and you actually value our opinion,
Yeah. That's interesting. I've had to learn that, which is part of my journey in the book that I wrote, Dear Alpha Female, because I am one of the women that I did not think that way. I've dated guys and they would get angry if I didn't ask their help for something. And I'm like, it's not even something I would think about, because I didn't grow up in a house with a man. I grew up in a house with a woman that was taking care of everything. I'm not saying that I don't need that. I just didn't have that. So that wasn't what I was used to. And right. And so we're all products of our environment. So I don't think that women are necessarily not asking to be disrespectful. That's my point.
Of course.
What was interesting to me in that clip also is that you could see that, like I said, as soon as Stacey sat down with the two of them together and really focused in on Dunbar, his energy shifted totally. Like, he's got this, this bravado going on. But then when it became like, I'm really looking into you, you could see he was very uncomfortable, and all that confidence kind of dissipated. Right. And so I think it goes back to what you said earlier, Kojo, about the fact that, when you first meet this couple, it seems like Dunbar is the one that's in control. He's trying to assert himself as the dominant one. But now, sitting next to each other, it looks very opposite. Chance is very confident, right? She plays along with him. But even we see when they're having the conversation later, after that clip that I just played, Dr. Stacey is asking Dunbar, and Chance comes to his defense and is like defending him. So it's really like she's the one that's kind of setting the tone in a way, because he's trying to figure out how to be in this dynamic because it makes him uncomfortable. So that's just interesting that we're seeing a very different side of him. There's another clip that I want to play, Kojo, and then talk a little bit more about what he's feeling, because this conversation continued on, but Stacey asked Chance to leave and let the two of them talk. And this is a clip from Dr. Stacey and Dunbar after Chance had left the room.
Especially me searching for ways to be visible. So we just like any other kid in school, will act out, we'll do something that's not normal, because we're struggling for attention. We're begging for attention.
Dunbar!
Hey.
So again, it's definitely showing us that Dunbar is the one that's feeling really insecure and is not in control and doesn't really know. I think that this whole thing, because we started out talking last week about the fact that he was complaining that Chance doesn't cook. And then she was like, well, I do cook. And then it's like, okay, well, you rub my feet. And well, I have rubbed your feet. I want smells in the house. Like, it was constantly, but really it's just all of that was his way of trying to create this issue when really he just wants more attention. And I just, maybe he couldn't articulate that. Do you think he really understands what the issue is?
I mean, I think he's probably not diagnosing it all the way through. So he's maybe seeing some of the branches and some of the leaves, but not able to look at the actual roots of what's actually happening to him. So, you know, there are deeper issues that are going beyond what he actually sees. So I think what with Dunbar we're seeing is that, you know, he is struggling to articulate the need, you know, and whatever's happened in the past is stopping him from being able to express it fully to Chance or the Doctor in terms of what he actually is trying to say. You know, and now you said that point as well about the whole, you know, I even said it myself about the cooking, the cleaning, and the smells in the house. And I remember saying as well, yeah, I mean, everything you told her, she's doing. So what's the big deal here? Like, what's the really big issue here? And the reality is, he said it. I think he said it in the first episode. She does it on his own time. The reality is this. I think partly, you know, attention is also aspect, but the thing is, she is not yielding to him. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that's her being bad. I think he senses somebody who doesn't yield to him, and there's a greater fear. The greater fear is, if this person doesn't yield to me, this woman is very beautiful, very stunning, very smart, very intellectual, very independent. How long before she steps out and leaves me? That may be fueled by some abandonment issues probably in the past too, but this is what it sounds like to me, because it's like the issue isn't the cooking and cleaning. The issue is that when he was saying it was, well, she does it on her own time, which basically means she doesn't necessarily do it when I want her to do it. Meaning you're really frustrated about the fact that, and again, it's not even about her doing it when you want to do it. It's about the aspect of, you want the person to follow your lead. You know what I mean? In a greater scheme of things. And maybe you're seeing certain things that don't come out exactly the way you want it to come out. And again, you're seeing her independence and her beauty, and you know how, and I don't even like using the word strong, but you see how assertive she can be as well. So, you know, maybe that's triggering a few things for him as well in dating her, that, you know, she's very assertive. I got to make sure I put my foot down, otherwise I might get played out here, you know?
So that sounds like it's fueled by fear. That
Yes.
sounds like from a fear of, and I feel like whenever fear is in a situation on either side, right? When fear is the motivation and that is causing us to act out, it can also result in wanting to control. Yeah. And actually, that's so funny, because KC Johnson just said that he's frustrated he can't control her, and I think that the reason that he wants to be able to control it, I want her to do what I want when I want it, so that I know that she really loves me. That is dysfunctional. That is dysfunctional. And that means he does need some more help. You know, that he needs some more, he needs to work through that first, because in a relationship, your partner is not there to fix your insecurities. You know, that's not the goal of relationship. And I'm not saying that we all don't have insecurities, but at this point, if it's like, I want her, it's not that she's not doing the actions, it's the way that I want her to do it to make me feel like I am a priority at that level. Even as you see, he looked very vulnerable. He was like, it just makes me feel very vulnerable, and it makes him afraid. And so I would say that this means this couple is definitely not ready to get married. It almost makes me feel like that's why he's pushing for marriage so hard, is because he's afraid that she may leave, that there may be another opportunity, because she is so independent.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that point. I think there is an aspect of being afraid that she will leave and up and go. And that's unfortunate. Dunbar needs to work on that, you know, because that's an aspect of his, you know, the way he values Chance, but also the way that he values himself, and the way that he actually, he attaches himself in a relationship. But you know, there is some aspects of, like, you can hear it. There are some good things about him. You know, fear that's eating him up, because even when before Doctor came, you know, the way he said to her, look, you know, we want to be able to talk and have conversation with the Doctor, blah blah. He laid it out what they wanted to do. So I was like, well, he clearly can communicate, but clearly when it comes to being vulnerable and communicating, we're having some issue here. So yeah, there's something obviously deeper going on with Dunbar that maybe, hopefully, we're going to get in this particular episode coming up, but definitely something that's deeper with him.
Well, I think we definitely are. We saw the previews. He breaks down. You know, he has a breakdown with Dr. Stacii, because it was just him by himself. And I think a lot of times, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, which is why I love doing this with you, because I think we get a male and female perspective. But I feel like a lot of times men, when they experience hurt, they don't really stop and just sit with it, right? It's got keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. So when you're sitting across from someone that's not letting you do the song and dance and be charming and get over, then you're unprepared for that. And I think that's why we saw him, because it's such a huge extreme. Dunbar goes from being the most talkative and charismatic in the room to crumbling. And it's because he doesn't sit and wait. He's constantly, and I think, his past as an athlete, that speaks to that as well. He's probably always been able to shake and move, right? And so Stacii is holding his feet right there to the fire and saying, no, that's not acceptable. I'm not going to let you get away with the being cute and the being charming and the being cocky and all that. No, no, no. What's up? And he is emotionally not able to handle that. And so I hope that he's able to really get some help, because I think he's an amazing guy. I love the fact that he does have a spiritual side. I'm just saying that a lot of times when it's brought up to a certain extent, sometimes people hide behind that, right? And what do you think about him saying he made a lot of comments about the fact that Christal, who was beautiful, and I did think she was beautifully dressed for a date. I mean, but he made comments when she first got there about the fact that she was covered up and she looked appropriate, and then even when they came back, when he saw Chance that next morning, she mentioned in her confessional that she was happy that he went out with a woman that was, that had moral values and was covered up. And I was just like, okay, but I mean, and she was like, I'm glad that he got a chance to date someone that was like that. I thought that was a little bit much. Just like, you're not dating these. If your goal is not to date the women for a relationship, it feels like more control,
Yeah, and I think also with the Chance and Dunbar and them going on their dates as well. That young lady that came, I mean, I was thinking to myself, looking at Chance and looking at the young lady, and I oh my phone. I think I do have to be conceding some ground here with Dunbar a little bit as well, again, because the reason why he liked that young lady was because she was very covered up. But then I look at Chance and I go, that's not the same thing, bro. So what is it that you're really looking for here? Because you've chosen a woman who doesn't represent those particular things. I don't even know if she's of the faith. I wasn't even sure, because you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? At this point, I have to ask a question, Dunbar, what are you leading with when you're choosing these women? Because you're talking about, you love the fact she's covered up, love the fact she's talking about Jesus, love the fact she's a minister, love the fact she's all these kind of stuff.
She's submissive. She said, I'm submissive.
All this. When you chose Chance, she was not submissive. She was not these things. She was all the things that you see her as now. She hasn't changed. So why did you go after her? And this is where he has to take some accountability, because as a person who's accountable for your own entire life, why choose someone who doesn't fit your narrative? Now, I don't know if your narrative has changed in the last 6 months or whatever, and you become more Christ-centered. I don't know. But it's at this moment, it's given to me like, okay, you chose this woman. You liked her look. You like the fact she dresses, probably sophisticated and sexy. She's smart and intelligent. She's beautiful. This is what drew you to her. Right? What now you're trying to do. Exactly. And now what he's trying to do now is you're trying to put shackles on her feet so that she can't dance. Mary, shout out. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to put shackles on her feet. And it's like, bro, that's not how she came into the relationship. And the thing is, what happens, especially for men, I'm going to go back onto your point about we're not sitting down. But what happens to a lot of men is that when you won't, sometimes you don't see the fullness of the control. You see parts of it at the very beginning, but you see it in a relationship because now you've exposed him. So when you expose him by loving him, you've actually exposed him, because now he has to be soft. And as he becomes soft, he now has to deal with the person that you're talking about, which is sitting down and dealing with himself. And when he starts to look at himself, he don't like what he sees, right? He can see that there's some brokenness there. There's some hurt. There's some pain there. If I open myself to loving you, I'm going to have to deal with myself, because that's what love is. When you fall in love with somebody, you are opening yourself up to be a mirror for that person. Two are becoming one. And so now a lot of what the problem with a lot of men is, and I was talking about this with the Tyrese situation, you need to sit down and heal. You can't tell me that you can't sit down and heal. You need to, because you're not dealing with the parts of you that are broken. And this is why you're confusing Chance and confusing yourself by choosing someone like Chance who doesn't fit your narrative. And then you're praising this woman who's completely covered from head to toe, talking about Jesus every second. If that's what you want, sir, I'm gonna need you to take yourself out and go and get what you want, and stop trying to control Chance in this way. That control is coming from that darkness. So yes, men do need to sit down. A lot of times we don't, because we are so ingrained with achievements. We can get by being a provider. And this is the reality of things. We can get by being excellent in work and making money, right? It will still get your woman.
Right. Wow.
It'll still attract a woman.
Yeah.
It'll keep some women as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because we don't get, and we're starting to see it now in our generation, women are starting to move the bar now. They're saying it's not enough. It's not enough. We don't want to see that anymore. As that bar is beginning to move, men are starting to complain because that is no longer good enough. And they're starting to complain. What do you mean it's not good enough? You're going to have to deal with yourself. You have to look at yourself, and you're going to have to bring some change. If not, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
I mean, so, so it's not easy, but yeah.
No, that's good. I just wanted to pass the plate. I just want to pass the collection plate. You dropped a lot of gems in there that it was just good. Number one, the part about when you love someone, when you're opening yourself up to be a mere reflection of them, and that is difficult for most people to do that are not totally healed, right? So and I think that men and women do it, but I think that women have a lot more opportunity because it's a part of the culture for women to talk about how much they've been hurt. Men, that's not a conversation that men are bragging about, like, what happened to them and the pain that they went through. So and Lord Jesus, that example of Tyrese saying that I just, I don't want to be by myself. I want to heal in a relationship. Sir, sir, no. And I think, it stands to reason that, Tyrese is a celebrity, and there are often people that are entitled to certain things. Any man can do certain things, but the more opportunity, the more access, the more status you have, the easier it is to get away from looking at yourself, right? And I feel like we have to remember Dunbar's past is he was a pro athlete. So he's not used to facing. He's used to being able to get his way. That's why I said you could feel it on him. He's used to being able to be charming enough, to be special, to be highlighted enough to get away with his stuff. And at this point, for him to crack that quickly, that proves that he just has not dealt with his issues. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen. I know we spent most of the time on Chance and Dunbar, but that really was the focal point for me of this second episode, because Stacii really, she let everybody go out with their dates, but she came to talk to them first because there was some unresolved issues that happened on that first date. And so kudos to her for having that. And I look forward to seeing what that next conversation is going to look like, the remainder of that conversation with Dunbar. Let's talk about Joya and Jaysha, because I felt like, we talked last week about the fact that Joya seemed really insecure in the relationship. It also seemed to me, I felt like both Jaysha and Rickey really enjoyed their dates. But I feel like, Rickey, we're going to get to in a second. That's a total different situation. But with Jaysha, I'm still trying to figure him out. But what we do see in the date that he went on, is that he was really connecting. He liked the fact that the young lady, Celine, that he went out with had a lot in common with him as far as the meditation, and she was a beautiful girl. Obviously, they did a great job in picking women that I felt like they really paid attention to what the guys were into. But I don't really have a feel on him yet. I don't feel like he is as committed to the goals that Joya has set. And that's something that he mentioned on the date, that, she's on this clock. I think she's like 37 and she wants to progressively move along. And so, of course, Celine is going to say, well, I'm a slow mover. I feel like the date's always going to say, what the significant other is not, just for the sake of the show. But I'm not really sure if it's the goal setting that he's not comfortable with, or if he's 100% invested in Joya. I'm not sure yet. Uh-oh. I think your sound is off. Your sound is still off.
Oh,
There we go.
sorry about that. Yeah, no, I think with the Joya, is it Joya? Joya?
Mm-hmm. Joya
No,
and
that's Joya.
Jaysha.
Joya and Jaysha. So I think that I mean his date first. Well, first and foremost, they did the girls' date dirty this season. The first round of dates. I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, the guys that they brought for the ladies, subpar. Okay, just no
Thank
offense to
you.
the
Thank
man them,
you. Oh
subpar.
my
It
God.
was.
Thank you.
It was not a competition at all between the two.
No.
Like they really did them dirty. But the ladies that they brought were, excelente.
Yes.
And Jaysha's particular date, again, another exquisite woman as well. So I think what was interesting about their particular date, though, aside her being a very beautiful woman, was the fact that there was conversation that was, I don't want to say intellectual because it wasn't necessarily there, but it felt like it could have got there.
Yeah.
And it felt like their conversation was warming up to get into a place of substance. Like they were, they gave us some points that they were talking about, and then obviously when she spoke Spanish, and he spoke Spanish, and it seemed to be a nice little click. And it looked like he genuinely was intrigued, and not intrigued in a way of like he wants to do something with her or get with her, but more of a case of it did feel like he was attracted to finding out what her mind was actually saying, and I wonder if he's missed a little bit of that with Joya in the relationship. But, I always pay attention to how they introduce us. When they first introduce them, they're doing yoga. So I wonder if their relationship is more of a sensual. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying maybe. I wonder if their relationship is more on a sensual level. They get each other, they flow, they vibe. It's more sensual, but maybe there's a part of him that wants to be accessed. Maybe that part of him wants to be accessed. And again, maybe you got a little bit of that on the date.
Right.
But this young lady is considerably younger than his current woman. True. She is 30. Yeah. And my thing about this situation is we don't have time to waste, number one. But number two, this is a compatibility issue, kids. It's not a chemistry issue. It's a compatibility issue, which means either we gonna do this or not. And so even this show for me is a waste of time. Because in all honesty, if it comes down to it, does she want the ring or the kids? It sounds like the kids thing in the rings is all important.
Yeah.
But the time for the kids is more important than it is for the ring. So it's like either you want kids, sir, or you don't. Yeah. I don't think you need to go on dates to prove that. Either you want it or you don't. And if you do want it, there's a time frame that she's looking for. So, and if you can't do it, end it. Because their one is pretty much more simple for me rather than the complication, because it's a compatibility issue.
Yeah. I guess I get it, because I think a lot of times what we do as women, if there's someone that we like a lot, regardless of where he's at in life, it's like, this is what I want. This is the end goal that I want. I want to get married. I want to have children. I like him. I want to fit him in that picture, regardless if he's ready or not. And then we try to make him ready for what we want. And that doesn't work. And I feel like that's what's going on. We mentioned that the fact that when we first met them, they were doing yoga. They also talked a lot about the fact that they travel. That sounds like this is a fun situation. This is fun. We travel. We've been here, there. He mentioned traveling a lot in his on the date with Celine. He's still enjoying life. He doesn't sound like someone that's ready to settle down at all. What can happen a lot of times from a female perspective, when you're focused on the man that you're dating or that you're in a relationship with being the man now that you want to marry and form a life with, that becomes your complete focus. So now you're not able to keep having fun because it becomes heavy, because every time you guys are together, you're reminding him of your impending these deadlines, and that takes the fun out of the relationship. That's not what he signed up for. I signed up for, we're doing yoga, we're meditating, we're on this, we're having a good time. And you can tell that Joya is really weighted down by the fact that she has certain goals that she wants to accomplish when it comes to starting a family by a certain time. Even mentioning that she's, 37 and she wants to do this right now. Well, the thing about that is you can't make someone else fit your timeline. So I guess it goes back to what you said about compatibility, because I've never thought of compatibility as far as like, you always think of compatibility as like, do you like the same things? Do you guys connect? Do you have the same sense of humor? But it also does extend into where you are in your life at that time. Like, are you ready to settle down? He may not be a bad guy, but he definitely doesn't come off as someone that's ready to have children and be, because obviously you're not going to be able to travel as much with children. I don't know. I mean, yoga definitely you can still do, but it may not be as easy, as you guys are doing it now without children. So I think that she wants something that he doesn't necessarily, he may like her, but he may not want what he wants, because I really feel like when a man is ready, you don't have to be the one that's constantly reminding and telling him he's going to do that for you. We see what Dunbar is doing. Not that Dunbar is actually ready. That's coming from something else, but I'm just saying a man that wants that is able to open up his mouth and say that. And with Jaysha, even on this date, you could tell he was very attracted to her and he was intrigued. But I also think he just wants something that's light. He does not want something that's heavy right now. And Joy, definitely, a lot of times if you're not, I love what Monique says, forcing puzzle pieces that don't fit. You cannot do that. And even if, it's unfortunate, and that's how heartbreak, happens a lot, is someone that you have so much fun with and you're so attracted to them. But if they don't want for themselves what you want for yourself, then it really is trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
You've told no lies. And I just to even bring it even back into when we're talking about compatibility. So when we're talking about chemistry, we're talking about, the vibe, the energy, the things that make things feel, easy. When we talk about compatibility, what we're talking about is the long-term objectives. You're talking about, for instance, one part of it can be sexual compatibility, whether you guys have the same ideas when it comes to sex. You can talk about emotional compatibility. Do you guys think about emotions in a similar way, and it doesn't have to be the same. It's a similar way of being able to think about emotions, right? Do we have the compatibility when it comes to intellectual? And then when the financial compatibility, I would call it even the last one, life goals. Do we have the same life goals that we're looking for? And again, they can coincide, but are they too distant from each other? You know what I mean? You have to ask yourself that. Faith compatibility, are we of the same faith? These are things that we call you can't what do you call it, we can't negotiate on these things.
Non-negotiables.
These are non-negotiables. These are pillars that are foundational for the building you're about to build. And so things like children, when you want them, actually is a conversational starter. I'm not saying have it on a first date, but before you get into a relationship, you should be having a conversation about, if you're at 37, 36, maybe 35, you want kids and you're burning for it, you got to let him know, listen, hey, look, I'm on the clock. I'm not here to push you and get you anywhere. I'm letting you know that I'm looking to get married in the next 1 year or two and have kids in the third or kids in the second.
Yeah.
That way the person knows exactly what they're getting into. And if they say yes, then you've got somebody who's going to ride with you and roll with you. Yeah. If not, then you don't go with them, because it's a non-compatibility issue. It can ruin the whole entire relationship. If he decides now to string along for another 3 more years,
yeah,
and she has to have kids in a different way, that strain in the relationship is a lot,
Yeah.
So she'll resent him.
Yeah, she will resent him. I feel like not only will she resent him, but she will make him resent her, because it's, at this point, every time we can't have fun because you're always you're sad because I don't want what you want right now. So it really destroys the relationship. And it's unfortunate because most of us have been there, everybody's been there with somebody that they want something different from and that person is ready for. But I think that we have to take accountability as adults for our own actions. And if that person isn't there, taking them to a TV show, trying to, remind them and have conversations with them over and over again is not going to change their mind. It really has to be two people that are basically on the same page at the same time for it to work in the right way. So speaking of two people on the same page at the same time, I was watching Rickey and what is his girlfriend's name? Oh my gosh. Rickey and
Catherine.
Yes, Catherine.
Catherine? Yeah.
I don't, I think that Rickey, he said something when he went on his date, and he liked the young lady that he went on a date with. I did think it was interesting that his date Sheila had red hair, just like Catherine
She
did.
looked good though.
No, she did. I think she was adorable. I mean,
Mm.
again, I'm so glad you said that the women were amazing and the guys definitely subpar. And I feel like it just goes to the fact that, as I say all the time, it's difficult to find men that want to go on reality shows in a realistic way. Like, it's hard. It's hard to find that. So I know that they have a hard time finding genuine men that are serious about a relationship to come on a show and date somebody else's. Like, that's not going to happen. So I get that. But women are obviously a lot more open to that. There's a few things I want to unpack with Rickey and
Mm.
Catherine.
Mm.
First of all, and El says this: are they living with the family? Um, and why? Because he said that he had not been on a date with anyone in a really long time besides Catherine. We know that they were friends for 10 years. Um, it seems like Catherine is a safe place. Rickey is not okay. He is not healed. He has not even really stood back up in his manhood yet. A lot of times when you go through a hurt, you will retreat back to a safe place, right? Home, want to be around people that are family to make you feel better. He went through a bad divorce where he was cheated on. And I feel like that has a lot to do with why he's living with family, right? Because he was broken. That hurt him really bad. What happened is he had a friend that was attracted to him and they started sleeping together. They should never have been in a relationship because this is not a real mature relationship. This is her holding a place for him so he doesn't have to deal with being lonely and he can still have some physicality, right? He can get some sex in, but he's not even moving forward from the hurt. It's just buried. And this is just a placekeeper. So I feel for her because she's a sweetheart. But women, ladies, we cannot. If you've been with a man for 10 years as his friend and he goes through a bad breakup and you see him hurt and he's living with his family, that is not an opportunity to start a relationship with him. He does not. That is, and I understand that a lot of us are nurturers and you care about somebody, you want to help them. A lot of times you want to help them, you want to make them feel better. You may want to give them a little something on the side because that usually makes people feel better for the moment, but it really is not anything substantial. And as you see in his conversation, it almost felt like Rickey was going on a date for the first time since the breakup. It seemed like he was just like, wow, I'm out. She's beautiful. This is the first time since because he's been able, Catherine has kind of held the place. She's been a band-aid, right? He hasn't addressed any of that. And now this show is allowing him to kind of step outside, get some fresh air because he's been like hibernating with his pain. He's not growing, he's not working through it. She's just there, not even as a band-aid, but as something that's not allowing the wound to heal. And she's going to end up getting hurt. She's going to end up getting hurt. She's going to end up wasting time. And it's going to hurt really bad because they've been friends for so long. So a lot of times your friend, it feels like a safe place, but actually you can get hurt worse because your heart is open and you're more vulnerable, and that type of heartbreak, it cuts to the core. So this is probably the most unfortunate situation on the show to me because they didn't authentically get together. He didn't see her, was attracted to her, and wanted to be with her. They fell into it because he was hurt, they were friends, it was familiar,
Mm-hmm.
it was safe, it was easy. All bad.
I mean, yeah. Yes, that's yeah, I'm not going to deny that at all. And I think also with Rickey, he just needs to heal. You know,
Yeah.
you've come out of a divorce, okay? And I think your friend being there, who was also a woman, presented the feminine energy that you needed to feel safe with,
Mm-hmm.
and presented you an ear to listen to. And unfortunately, that doesn't heal the damage that's within you. You know, he even at parts he looks like a shell of himself, and I haven't even seen him before. But he's giving me like he's giving me energy as if he's a shell of himself. You know what I mean? So you know, I felt like, you know, for him, you know, I think I do think they have a strong bond because obviously they have a friendship already. But I think there's a one or two things that he needs to sort out. I think there was a need to have taken time out of the game, healed, and then got back out there. But I feel like he's kind of been broken by the woman in the past relationship. I mean, it sounds like she really did a number on him, and then he's now entered into this relationship with a friend, which, like you said, is easy. It's comfortable. It's simple. It's without much work having to be done because you already have an established relationship prior to that. So you're not starting again.
No.
If you really, really think about it, he's not starting again. He's actually starting from already a foundation, which means, again, it's not part of that risk that we all take. You know, we have to start again, build ourselves back up again, and get out there and choose someone brand new. He hasn't have to do that in this instance. He's chosen his friend who already has foundations and trust that he's already got there. So he doesn't have to work on a trust issue.
Yeah.
You know, that he might have developed after the PTSD of being cheated upon. It sounded like he was cheated on. So, you know,
cheated upon. It doesn't sound like he chose her. It sounded like he kind of rolled over and she was there. And, you know, not saying that she put her, but I'm saying, like, I don't feel like he had to pursue her. He didn't. He just kind of, it was comfortable. It was familiar. She wanted to help him feel better, and they kind of just fell into the relationship. There was no courtship and pursuit, which really, you know, makes it feel like a relationship. Actually, their energy feels very much like friends, right? You see them playing basketball, you know, and I feel like that's why when I watched him on this date, it felt like it was the first time he was really like, okay, I may be interested. Huge red flag when he mentioned to Sheila, which kudos to her for being like, what? That he goes over the ex's house and spends the night. No, that's not behavior that says I've moved on and I've set healthy boundaries with my ex. Like, I don't care how young your children are. When you break up, when you guys are no longer in a relationship, then you have to figure out, how do I co-parent in a way that allows boundaries to be in place and we move out of that. It sounds like to me, Rickey he got hurt and he just didn't ever, he went back for family, for safety, but he's not started to build himself back up. He's not stood up yet. He just rolled over. His friend was there. He still probably has some very, very ambiguous boundaries with the ex, because you should not be spending the night at your ex's house. That's just inappropriate. And if she was moved on and had a man that was in her life, he would not be okay with him spending the night at the house. Like that's part of it. I understand that we have kids that are small, but when you break up, you say, okay, now I have to figure out how to do this in a way that is different. It can't be like it was. Things have to change. I don't feel like Rickey he just hasn't picked himself back up. He has been able to lay in the proverbial breakup bed and has not been challenged or required to stand up and be a man. And for that reason, I don't see that he's nowhere near ready to put a ring on it. He just not even putting a ring on is not even the question. He needs to stand up and get over his past for himself. Forget, you know, Catherine and all this. He's not okay for himself. He's not living as an independent man that is back on his feet.
I agree with you. There's way too many people in the house. Bless you, babe. There's way too many people in this house. I almost feel like the people in the house are also they are a buffer
Yes.
between himself and even even Catherine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why would you want your people to move in? I'm so confused by that. It's almost as if you're not wanting her to. Again, this is going back to not dealing with self and seeing self. You're
Mhm.
almost preventing the vulnerability that needs to take place with you and her being alone, and actually having to work and face some of the things that are coming your way. It's almost like a distraction
Yeah.
having them there, away from her. You know, listen, I don't mind people doing a good favor for their family. Of course, it's important, but you know, you started your new life now. You know, you're supposed to be. So having the family come into the play, so many of the family too. I mean, you got your sister with 2 kids, you got your brother there. Like, bro, like, what is going on? Like, come on. Like, there's a lot of people in this household, bro, that don't need to be in this household.
Yeah.
But you know, for for him, I think again the people coming into his and his parents as well are there as well. So
Mhm.
his parents are also living in the house as well. I forgot about that. So there's quite a few adults in this household. That's going to make it a struggle to actually be vulnerable and actually, you know your wife intimately. And I'm not even talking about sex. I'm just talking about intimately knowing her, being able to spend alone time with her. Because already, remember, it's been a little while since we've gone on some dates.
Mhm.
So now, what is the issue as why we haven't gone on dates? I mean, are these people paying rent? I'm also confused by that. What's going on?
I felt like it was his parents' house, and like I said,
Mm,
there was a guy on another show on Married at First Sight. When he went through a breakup, he went back home and was staying with family. And I think, people do that a lot, and it's not necessarily always a financial thing. Sometimes it's more of a comfort thing. Like you said, it's a
yeah,
buffer for you not to have to deal with yourself. It allows you some comfort, and it's clear Rickey was very honest about the fact that he was hurt very badly, in the situation with his ex. So it made sense to me. Well, it didn't make sense that she would be in there with him, because that is what woman is moving in the house with you and your family. I'm not even coming to hang out with you at the house. I'm not going to the bedroom that you have downstairs with your mom and daddy up. Like, who does that as a grown person? That's like some high school stuff. So, um, if anything, why would she move into that? That's very odd. Um, and says something about her judgment, as well. For them all to be staying there with all his family, it just says this is not a grown up relationship. This is very immature, and it's staying in an immature place. And of course, she probably wanted to move to the next level, but there's that old adage of how you get them is how you come into the relationship is usually how you leave the relationship. So if this was not acceptable, you should never have accepted it in the beginning. You should never have set that precedent that you would be okay laying down with him in his family's home, not making him really stand up and date you and make the relationship a mature adult relationship. They don't go out, they just play basketball. That feels like it's like a high school, relationship. That's not, y'all are just hanging out at the family. He's licking his wounds. He's not getting better. He's just licking his wounds, at the house. And she's not, a lot of times people will do what you allow them to get away with, right? So if you allow him not to stand up and not to treat you, as the woman that's the priority in his life, he's not going to do it. I feel like Rickey seemed so much more, like a man with a woman when he was on the date with Sheila, because he actually was engaged. He has to show up, because this is not someone that is comfortable. Like you said, you got to put yourself out there, ask questions, do all that. He didn't have to do any of that, with Catherine, because it was something that was already, this is just here. It's already next to me. I'm just going to roll over. And he hasn't even put his feet on the ground. His feet are not on the ground.
yeah. Listen, I again, you're spot on again. And I think with him and Catherine, I wonder what Catherine's thoughts were. And someone said why she moved in the first place. What was her hope and a dream and aspiration of moving in if the situation wasn't looking too good? I think also with Rickey, what he needs to do now is really sit down with Doctor and kind of have a look at what things need to change ASAP Rocky, and that could mean also no relationship.
Yeah.
But he was loyal enough with Sheila. I mean, he when Sheila tried to throw trying to throw out the little bait. He refused to take it on 2 occasions. She even offered his food as a way to try and get him in. He said,
Yeah.
I'm a loyal brew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I commend him for that. that he was loyal in that respect. I
Mhm.
just think that he may need to sit down with Doctor and analyze what maybe some of the fears are and some of the issues that are making him not be able to step forward with Catherine. And if that means Catherine actually is the issue in terms of the fact that you don't like her like that, you don't fancy her, you don't find her attractive like that, then you're gonna have to bounce. You're gonna have to release her so that she can go about her life and not waste her time, and not because you're comfortable.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right. And it's unfortunate because I think that he definitely has love for her. I just don't think it's
Hmm.
the type that you have to test things after that person has gotten back on their feet, right? And then I would say that anybody in a situation like that, if you see a friend, if you have feelings for a friend that's going through something, allow them to get back on their feet and then see if they
Yeah.
want to pursue a relationship with you. Because if they do at that point, then you know that there's genuine interest as a potential mate, not as a friend that I love, that I'm thankful for them being there for me. That's not a great that's not a great foundation to build a relationship upon. So, you know, um it can be tempting, especially if you have feelings for the person, but this is what we end up with, a friend. It is a friend with benefits. And not even many benefits at this point. If they're not they're not going out, they're just laying up in the house with the family. She probably is more like a cousin at this point than than a girlfriend that he's dating. So it'll be interesting to see this. I think if nothing else, this will probably help Rickey get unstuck because he's obviously
Yeah.
stuck, in the pain from that past relationship.
How long have they been together though? Since they've been together
They
a year or two?
almost 2 years, but they were friends for
For
10.
10.
Yeah.
This is salvageable. This is salvageable. This is salvageable in terms of just being friends. Like,
Yeah.
yo, I
Oh,
mean, I think, maybe not friends deep because they've had
okay.
sex. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's salvageable in terms of we can be cool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like before this gets messy,
They're
before
not
it gets
gonna
gets
get out
messy.
though. They're not gonna get out. They're not gonna get out right now. I don't, because people don't come on this show, I don't believe, with the true intent of taking the real advice, right? They don't
That's
they
fair.
Because everybody feels like they know better than the situation. They have these preconceived ideas that, oh, I already know what I'm doing. I'm going to get some help, but it's going to go the way that I want it to go. And I don't think Catherine it would be even able to comprehend. That's a hurtful situation. I've had a situation where I had feelings for a friend. It's hard, you know what I mean? Because she's built up this picture in her head of this is the perfect situation. It's my friend. I saw how he was hurt. She's locked in. It's rough. That's gonna be rough. I don't see them. That's gonna play itself out. And the thing about the friendship, it feels like a harder betrayal because it's like, but you know me and you hurt me and you don't want that. It's a different type of rejection. That's my opinion. I feel like that's a harder rejection because if you meet somebody that you don't know and it doesn't go well, you haven't been as vulnerable with them because you don't know them. A friend is easy to just give your heart completely to. That's rough.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It is easier to give your heart to someone um, who is
Like familiar.
yeah, familiar, and it's just comfortable. It's safe.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they've got to that place where what, job done. We need to go our separate ways.
Mhm.
Because he's unwilling to make that effort. He's not dating her, and I don't know. I feel a bit weird as well with the whole flower situation by his bed, and he's like, I find that's competitive. I was like, competitive where? Uh,
That was
just all that energy in you.
that
That
was
was weird.
that was very weird. That was very weird. Yeah, it was even weird for her to suggest. I feel like
Yeah.
that's not going to make him. And women, we have to know you cannot make a man jealous by showing him what another man does for you. Because again, that other man has no responsibilities to you. So he can buy you some flowers, but he's going on about his way. He's not taking care of you. He's not living with you. And men are smart enough to know that. So he's like, eh, okay, he bought some flowers, probably making the room smell good, but that's not gonna. Rickey is stuck, and I'm telling you, he has not stood up at that point. I feel like he got broken, and he's just hurt, and he's down, and this is easy. It's within arm's reach. I haven't had to stretch. I haven't had to get up. I haven't had to I haven't had to do anything to inconvenience myself to court you. It's all been right there. You don't have any requirements for this relationship. I don't date you. I live at home. You haven't made me live up to being a man. And the thing about it, the man that wants to be your husband will want to rise to that occasion, because he's
Yeah.
not going to want a woman that will be like, okay, I'll just come over and, ride you with your family upstairs like that. Exactly. Elle said, Catherine fell in his lap. That is not the woman that you ultimately want. It's convenient. And it's definitely, I had a guy friend tell me one time, and I will never forget these words. This girl was doing all this stuff for him. And he said, she is a bridge. She is a bridge for me to get to the woman that I want to be with. And I was just like, that is
Placeholder.
that is a placeholder. That is the reality. And you're right, Donna. He is definitely still mentally dealing with the pain of the broken marriage. You can see the wound is so close to the touch. He is not even able, when he talks about it, you can see it on his face. Like physically, he's not anywhere near over it. He's still broken. And actually the relationship with Catherine is probably keeping him stuck.
Yeah, I think that sometimes I was watching Acrimony the other day, and I'm meaning to do a live on Acrimony because it's such a great film in terms of perception. Yeah, by Taraji P. Henson. Mm-hmm. But I think what it reminded me of is that sometimes men need a lot of men, they need rock bottom.
Yeah,
they need it, and if you're there to cushion the fall, you are going to rob them of the opportunity of growth. And sometimes what these men are doing is they're falling towards rock bottom, and on the way they find a woman who's willing to take the weight and the load. And the problem with that is that it stops that man from having to figure it out.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, and we're not talking about people in relationships. We're talking about people who are single.
Right.
This guy was single at a point in time. He was divorcing from his partner. He needed to hit rock bottom. He needed to find out how to get past it. He didn't need you he didn't need you to overstep the line. And I'm not blaming her solely. I'm saying both of them, but I'm saying he didn't need you overstepping the line at that point in time. And this is why we talk about giving people that space and time after a breakup, after a divorce. Just allow them just to, even if they're going to have fun and just date around, even if they're going to be lighthearted and get to know people, allow them to have that space and time to do so. If you know you're serious, you might not want to jump in just yet. Just give them some time to figure stuff out, because that person needs to be able to recover from hitting the ground. They need to be able to figure out what's my next move. But if you get involved, like we said about the Tyree situation all over again, this is the same thing. Mm-hmm. If you get involved with them, you become their crutch rather than now becoming somebody who walks alongside them. You're now their crutch that helps them walk with their broken leg when they should have had time to heal the broken leg so they can walk and run beside you. Mm-hmm. So that's what she's becoming in a sense. She's become a crutch. And then the question we have to ask now is, Catherine, why did you want to become a crutch?
That can go back. I don't know about the situation because we don't know enough, but a lot of times people want to sign up for that position when they are not confident. And it's a way to be able to control a situation. They want a broken bird that they can nurse back to health and think that person is going to owe them something and they're going to stay with them. Ooh. But the thing about being a crutch is that your position is always temporary, because eventually that leg is going to heal. Even if it has to be rebroken and it has to heal over again, eventually your time is going to come to an end. And I always tell women, like, men are not wired the way women think they are, right? So you can think that you're going to do all these things for him when he's a broken bird, nurse him back to health. Guys that go to jail, a woman comes, puts money on their books and does all this stuff. And she thinks that when he gets out, he's going to be loyal to her. No. And I don't think it's about being loyal. You're trying to win his love by being manipulative in a way, right? It's emotional manipulation. I'm going to be there for you when you're hurt, and that's going to make you love me. That's not the way love works. The way a healthy love means that person has chosen you of their own free will. When they're at a clear mind, clear head, not under duress, and they have chosen you. Not when you have wiggled in when they were at a deficit and they were at a handicap, because all you know is, like, when that person gets back to their normal self, they're not going to want to be with you. And you shouldn't want to be with someone that is only there because they're hurting, because they're broken. That's dysfunctional on both sides. So, usually we see this with men, as opposed to women. I've always heard guys laugh about, how a guy friend will be around, and when the girl's hurt, she comes and cries on his shoulder, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna take this opportunity to slide my way in because that's what I wanted to do the whole time. That happens, and when I've been the girl that was hurt, and the guy friend that had a crush on me came and let me cry on his shoulder, took me out, thought I was gonna look, but I never looked at him like that. Even when I was taking his kindness and allowing him to take me out because I needed to get out of the house, I never looked at him as a replacement for the man I had. I looked at it as medicine to help me get back in a better place. I just didn't see that person like that. And that's because the other person can sense what you're doing. They can sense it. They know you're here trying to wiggle your way in because you see that I'm maybe weaker than I would be normally. And it's really a sense of, it's control, just in a different way. So it doesn't work. You will end up hurting yourself. It's not even the person hurting you, it's you playing yourself. Because if you were really serious about being in a relationship, then you allow that person to make a choice. You don't try to get in on a technicality and then hope that lasts, hope it lasts. I know a lady that married a guy that was like 15 years younger than her. He was fine as all get,
Damn.
and he was in jail. She helped him get out of jail, got him a business, and he would tell me, he was like, Christal, I'm thankful to her, but I just don't feel that way about her. I tried, I just don't, but she wasn't being helpful. She was trying to build a situation. And I'm not saying that this situation is as extreme as that, but I am saying that when you get with someone that's broken and try to be their medicine, just know that that's a temporary place.
A builder boo right there. That is a builder boo right there. We don't do Lego man builders up in here. Okay. Yeah. And you just said a word, and I won't even say too much about it because I think you've encapsulated it beautifully. But that story that you even told there is quite interesting. That is acrimony all over. The kind of situation.
Yeah.
I always say that building Frankenstein, what happened to the doctor? Well, the Frankenstein turned on the doctor and killed the doctor.
Yeah.
Because the monster, you've created a monster. It looks beautiful to you. You might think so. I've created something, but the person looks at themselves in the mirror and they cannot see themselves. They can see what you have pieced together to build them up. So, and to feel beautiful, they go to someone else and they feel beautiful, So it's not to say that you can't help a man, but I think you got to have a healthy boundary in this instance. And it's making me think about, why do we step in and help people in a way that becomes romantic rather than helping people in a way of, I'm just your friend. And so it almost makes it, I don't want to say manipulative, but it does in some shape. It's like you have a second reason as to why you're helping me. The real reason is because what you have is your first thought is about you.
Right.
It's not about me. Right. It's about you. You want the plaudits at the end, which is what you're saying. You want the plaudits at the end. And so that person realizes they are now the amusement. As much as it may be about you thinking you're going to get the love and appreciation, but now they are your toy because they're now your toy for joy and pleasure. They're not your partner. So you have to allow, especially for men specifically, I would say, you have to allow these men to fail. That's acrimony, actually. That's what happened in there. He needed to fail on his own. He needed to crash and burn.
They do. And I think and you can say this, speak to this better than I can, but I feel like men, the woman that they want to be with, they want to be in a great place for her. They don't want to because they want the woman to look at them like,
he's done something.
Yeah, he's her Superman. There's no way he wants to look at a woman every day that has nursed him back to health. Like that's just not the dynamic that's going to work for true love. I've heard guys say, well, I like the way she looks at me. That woman that went and got you. And I think women, we are nurturers. And I think there's a place for that nurturing once you're married and that's your husband. And if something happens, then you nurture then. But in the beginning, it's almost like a man needs to he needs to be in a good place himself. And I've heard you say this,
Yeah.
Kojo, like you don't need to start a relationship when you're not at your best self, right? Emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, like, because you're going to make better decisions, and you're also going to be able to have the confidence to stand up in the relationship as the man that you are. And it's not going to be like I'm settling for this woman, because you're going to go after what you really deserve. That same guy that told me this girl was a bridge also told me that when he was broke, he was like, I go after like 5s and 6s, maybe 7s, but I know when I get my money right,
I'm gonna be 8s and 9s.
I know what I can really get. And I'm just like, dang, these girls, again, placeholders. That's why I would just stay away from me until you are who you are, because you don't want to be that 5 or 6 thinking that you're his idea of a 9 or 10, and you're building him up, and then he wants to go be with somebody else. Like, exactly. Men want to be seen as Superman, not Clark Kent. Like, and I want to look at him that way. So that means I don't need to save him. I can support, but I don't need to save. That's two different things, you know?
You know, it's so funny that you said that, what the gentleman said about, you know, about he can get higher. I have a thing that I was saying to my friend, which is, you know, you can't, as a man, you can't cash out too early. And for those of men who have ambition, who have dreams, that's not every man. Not every man has large ambitions and large dreams. But for those, especially those who are creatives, those who have large ambitions, dreams, musicians, those kind of people, footballers, to marry them early it may seem like it's a good idea, but actually we're clipping their wings, because they are not seeing they can see that their finished product is much larger than where they are now. And it's very hard to stay faithful to what you were at the beginning, because you see yourself as much bigger than this person actually is. So it's not that they're not trying to be, they're trying to be disloyal, but you don't fit the vision anymore. You know what I mean? And that's what you're saying about the 5 and the 6, is that's what's happening. So when men cash out too early because we're trying to force them into something, these men who have large dreams and ambitions, they shouldn't be cashing out so early. They need time to build a little bit so that they can stabilize themselves a little bit to where they are. You know what I mean?
Woo! That was a word. Another word. Please, likes and shares and super chats or something. I mean, oh my God. That was huge. You know, there's a running joke. You know, I come from the music industry, and there's this running joke about a rapper starter kit, right? And that you could tell the difference between a man's baby mom that he gets with before he gets on, and the woman that he gets after. And I've always, I just thought that was so horrible. I mean, it's very clear. You know, I see the guys come in, and you know, the chicks that they're with early on, and then I could name names, but that would be messy, so I won't. But it's crazy. And I've always thought it's because I've never thought that he saw himself in a different space. So that woman was never the woman for him anyway. Oh, I never thought about that. That is powerful. That was really powerful, Kojo. Jesus Christ.
My grace.
Oh my God. Men are so very different. You guys say you're simple, but you're not simple. You're so very,
you're right.
So very different.
Right.
But, so I have to ask this question, because guys, the doors of the church are open. Kojo, so how do we as women, keep ourselves from being, how do you know? Because a man, a lot of times, that guy that I'm talking about, he would actually interact, engage, a light pursuit. It wouldn't be a full pursuit, a light pursuit of women that he considered 5, 6s, and 7s. How do we keep ourselves from being that placeholder and reserve ourselves to be with the man that sees us as a part of his ultimate vision? How do we, keep from falling for the okie doke? Because there are numerous women that are with him before he gets the pub deal. And then as soon as he gets that check, and I've always thought, well, he just wants to, upgrade to something that he feels like other men are going to be more accepting of. I never thought it was more to that. But what can a woman do? How can a woman be aware? Because like I said, a lot of times a man will do enough to keep you engaged because he doesn't really have anything else going on at the time.
I mean, I would say, the first thing to see is again is what is our level of ambition? What is a woman's level of ambition?
Yeah.
You know, what is your level of ambition? I think, and then I'll take acrimony again once more. If you notice that Taraji P. Henson's character, her character actually lacked ambition.
Yeah.
So he was going to leave her behind eventually because his ambition was huge. He was thinking about changing the world while she was thinking about just being a wife.
Yeah.
And for so when you ask a man what is his ambition, what's his goal, if he gives you an ambition that is like, I'm trying to change the world, I'm trying to do things that you know that are going to be high status, high wealth, high power, you have to ask yourself the question, where do you see yourself? Because oftentimes you may see yourself maybe not in the same light. If you see yourself as somebody who's also ambitious and trying to also change the world, then maybe this can work. Because what he will always see is that, you know, this is somebody who is a running mate.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not going to leave her behind so far where I go to. Alternatively too, as well, sometimes, listen, it's going to be hard to say, but you know what? Some of us just don't need to be entering the fray with people who do these things like football, music, you know, the high end. Some of y'all just need to leave that alone. You know what I mean? Like people get excited about the man. I think sometimes what happens is sometimes women get excited about the man that's going to conquer the world.
Yeah.
You want to be the lowest lane to Superman.
Yeah.
Right. But the reality is him being Superman, it's not Superman. Superman's loyal. Superman in real life does not do that. There's a lot of guys who are not able to be Superman and still be loyal. So I think you just got to ask yourself the real question. Know what level you're at. Know what level he is trying to go to. If you feel like his level is well beyond yours, look, do you know what's funny? Men do this. There are two types of men. There are men who are, I call them Draculas, who suck the life out of women who they know they're going far. And there are men who say, when you're going far, I need to leave you alone. I don't want to be involved with you because I can't catch up with you.
Facts.
Right.
Facts.
So we need women to be in that same thing. Like, oh, do you know what? I can't catch up with you. I'm going to leave you alone. I'm going to leave you alone. But because women's role is slightly different to men, sometimes women get caught up in the, well, you know, I can be a great woman as long as I love him and I appreciate him. But it's like, that's not all that men want, unfortunately. It's good, but it's not the end. If, as you know yourself, the industry you're in, it's good, but it doesn't keep these men. So for me personally, is asking yourself the key question: what is my ambition level? Are we matching in our ambition level? You know, do I see myself in a grander scale? Am I a visionary in that particular way? Right? Because again, unfortunately, and I know people don't like thinking about relationships like this, there are power dynamics that come into play.
Yeah.
Right? There are power dynamics that come into play. So unfortunately, when he sees you as this, she's just a wife. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, she's just a wife, but look who I am. I'm this person. I'm huge. I'm big. Is this what I really want? Just her to be like this? It's unfortunate. There's no formula, but the key question is asking yourself the question: do I have a close enough matching ambition as he does? If I do, fantastic.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to keep it real though, Kojo. We're gonna keep it real because I'm around these guys. I'm around these guys, and I was talking to one of my guy friends who's 52. He's you know, multimillionaire in the music industry, made a lot of money, out doing things, still very active. And I said, I want to hook you up with this woman. This woman has a multi-million-dollar company. And he said to me, he said, Christal, he said, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. And I would, you know, I'll meet her, but I want you to tell me first, what does she look like coming? I really would rather someone that looks great coming out of the shower. I said, okay. So I want to ask, because we're talking about matching ambition, right? But usually the men that I'm talking about, and you know,
to my looks,
it comes back to this is the look that I want. And not just the look, but also,
class.
like you mentioned, her ability to accept certain things, right? So another guy in the business, he was like, you know what? I need a woman that's going to be okay with me not being faithful, right? And I knew that this woman, he's a high level executive in the entertainment industry. I know I can't be faithful. I don't even want to. I want a woman that is open to me not being faithful. So I had to leave this woman because I knew that she wasn't the woman that I needed. I needed a woman that was okay with it, that knew the play, that was cool with it. But a lot of it seems to go to, at that level, not necessarily ambition, but as someone said, Empress said, a walking trophy. So are we talking necessarily about matching ambition, or are we really talking about a woman that fits the car that I have, the house that I have, the ambition? Is men's ambition equivalent to a
To women's.
woman's physical appearance?
Okay, so if we're talking about the level we're talking about, which, let's say if we're talking about celeb level, we're talking about people that are renowned, known, status, power, wealth. We're talking about that top percentage.
Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down to
If
just
it's the average man. If we're talking about the average man, let's say 6 figures.
right. Okay.
Okay, so if we're talking about the average man at 6 figures, but I personally believe then looks is a part of it, fitness is a part of it, a woman that's agreeable is a part of it. I do think some level of education is also important as well. Matching education, right, of that individual person is also important of it as well, right? And somebody who is able to understand his vision, if he has one per se, right? Because he might just be a career person. So someone who's able to understand his vision, and someone who's able to encourage him is what they're looking for. But the reality, I want to be honest with you, the reality is this: meeting someone at the bottom, there is no guarantee that when he gets to the top, he still wants you. That's why I said that there's no necessary formula, because once he gets to the top, if he has any wounds, anything he hasn't sorted out in his childhood, it's going to play out in that relationship, because now he has the ability to have everything.
Yeah.
So my thing is this: any woman looking for this, is you're always looking for character. You're always looking for what's the person's character, what do they value, because that will give you the way that the person's probably going to operate. Right? Yeah. If you know they've got some shady character, if you know they've always had a little bit of a womanizing way about them, this is probably going to come out a little bit later on as well. So for me, it's always about the character and looking at what are their values and what are their attitudes. Do you have the same family values too? Like, how do y'all see the future? Right. You know what I mean? This is very important. But so that's what we're talking about then. Yes, looks is important. Appearance is important. Being fit and feminine is important. Being agreeable, and agreeable does not mean a doormat. It means that, you know what, you're able to disagree in an agreeable manner, meaning that he's not combative. Right. And you're somebody who can encourage, you can speak life into him, who, you know, you can pick him up when he falls, or when he's feeling down, you can lift him up again. You're going to need all those assets if you've got a man that's on that particular level. Not saying celebrity, but let's say, like, you know, someone who earns good amount of money.
Man. Yeah, successful
man. That is what they're going to look for.
Yeah, I don't think most of us are worried about the celebrity level. I'm around them and I'm not worried about it. I purposely would never, and I'm around that because really a lot of access. But I have a lot of access, but I would never have. But yeah, I think that's the biggest point for today is the character, and the character. If you follow the character, you won't go wrong, because when you watch what a person does, how they handle other people, how they handle themselves, how they handle other situations, you can know that how they show up in one area is how they're going to show up in other areas. You can, you know, so that's telling. But I hope that, again, that the doors of the church are open. The collection plate is gone through the chat. Please make sure that you support. And support is a verb, you all. Support is a verb. Support with your likes, support with your super chat, support with all of that. And I appreciate my co-host. This was a great conversation, just a great relationship conversation on top of Put a Ring on It. Looking forward to see what happens on Friday on both Ready to Love and Put a Ring on It. And we will be right back here next Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern. I believe it's 8 p.m. UK time. So you guys will be right back next week with more Put a Ring on It, more relationship conversation. This was great, Kojo.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. It's a good vibe, man. You know, we the shackles are off our feet so we can dance.
Yes. Well, I look forward to dancing with you next week. I appreciate everybody coming out with us. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Hey, Christal, and we will see you guys next Thursday. All right. Bye.